Greetings and salutations, everyone. Mr. the Vest Man here, bringing you Settlement, Level 3 of the Rise of the Martian Bear. And this level, I would easily say, and I'm sure most people would agree, that this is the hardest level. Because, frankly, this is, I'm thinking before I say this, but I'm going to say this is one of, if not the biggest map that you have to deal with. Just in overall size, and you can see one of the major problems is there are 3 objectives, and the distances between them are very great. Not necessarily from one to the next one, but from one to the last one. To get from green to orange, it's quite the distance. It's quite the walking distance, even shooting distance. The only thing that can reach that far is snipers. And I think there might be a couple broadcasters, or a really damn good artillery shell. So this map, similar to some other tower defense games, your biggest inhibitor, your biggest enemy is going to be the size of the map. So if you're playing by yourself, I strongly suggest you bring snipers. If you have the Albert sniper, bring that. If not, bring your next best thing, hyper snipers, if you prefer those. Or if you're a good shot, you could bring more powerful snipers that have less bullets or less fire, or a slightly higher firing time. These are the new enemies. They're called Cathies, and they're basically tiny versions of the Blitzers. They don't do quite as much damage as the Blitzers, but I mean, if a group of 20 of them hits you, you're definitely going to feel it. But they are significantly easier to kill. You just gotta make sure you're paying attention to them. But the main thing for this map is the size. So if you're playing solo, or even if you're playing with just one other person like we are, the biggest thing I could suggest to you is to have your characters using snipers. If you're not using snipers, at the bare minimum, you're going to want machine guns, or you're going to want something with fairly good distance on them. Todd, I think, is using a sniper and a machine gun. I'm using a sniper and machine gun. He might have a shotgun, actually, a sniper shotgun. But I definitely have at least one sniper. The other thing for your place, or for your mech, assault, is if you're playing solo, I wouldn't suggest using an assault mech because they're so slow. Getting from point A to B, even with sprint legs, is going to be tough. I would suggest using standard or engineering. Obviously, if you're using engineering, try to use one of the engineering mechs that can equip a sniper. There are a couple of them. If not, for most of this DLC, I would recommend just use the standard chassis. That way you have 2 slots on each side, or 3 slots, depending how you do it. But I prefer the 2 slots on each side, so you can have 2 snipers, or, as you see me right now, 1 sniper, 2 machine guns. And for emplacements, you're going to want pretty well the same setup I've been recommending so far. Broadcasters, machine guns, and shotties. However, if you're playing by yourself and you're on an engineering chassis, I would not recommend using snipers. The snipers would be useful on this map if you place them around the blue area out. You can see right in front of me the land kind of juts out into the swamp. If you put a couple snipers out there, they'd actually do really well. The only thing is, of course, the money, the financial investment for snipers is fairly high. Also, instead of using shotguns, you might want to use anti-air, depending how competent you are, or how competent you feel about shooting down aerial enemies. So, me and Todd combined, we were pretty well taking care of the aerials fairly decently. So I didn't bring an anti-air. I don't know if Todd brought an anti-air or not, but so I was just using the machine guns. But if you want, you could bring up the anti-air, and that's obviously going to be much better for taking down those aerials. And the aerials will focus on blue and orange for the most part. So that's where you want to put the majority of your anti-air if you do that. Otherwise, just put up as many machine guns as you can, and keep an eye on the Jacobs. The Jacobs are going to be a problem. There's not going to be anything like just mind-boggling. But one of the biggest issues you will have, aside from the size of this map, is going to be Volt Droppers. The Volt Droppers fly in a very similar to the first map. There's a cut, and there goes their pre-amplifier. Similar to the first map, the Volt Droppers have a really large flying arc, so they will basically they'll be out of range of most of your turrets most of the times, with the exception of the snipers. So it's going to be very difficult. If you're playing by yourself, dealing with the Volt Droppers is going to be very difficult, and I would be incredibly impressed if you got a gold somehow. Even pulling out a silver solo is pretty difficult. I hear the strangest sounds coming from outside right now. So, the Volt Dropper is going to be very difficult for you. You're going to have to use your snipers. You're going to just be a really good shot if you're trying to snipe it out of the sky. Otherwise, just if you have machine guns everywhere, he's bound to fly over some of them once in a while. And your sniper turrets have significant range on them. So if you have 1 or 2 snipers up, they will help you. Otherwise, you're just going to have to really work it yourself. This map is one of those maps where I would suggest you play it with multiple people. The more people you have on this map, the greater chance of success. That's true for all the maps, but this map in particular really, really requires you to have multiple people. You'll even see with me and Todd here. Now, granted, Todd admittedly says that he was testing out some new weapons, so he wasn't really well equipped for the situation at hand. He was using that new sniper rifle that has that shocking red laser effect. I don't know what it's called. And he was using, I just remembered, but he was using Admiral Archie. Well, the Admiral Archie ends up actually sucking terribly. So, unfortunately, we weren't the best equipped. So, we are actually only going to pull off a silver. But one thing to note on this DLC is there is no achievement for getting all golds. And to the best of my knowledge, you don't get bonus anything for getting all golds. But, so you're not actually going to see us get gold. We actually get hammered on pretty good by the Volt Droppers. What else? There are the decoys. I should mention too. Those phallic, penis-y looking objects on the map. Those tower things. Yep, that one right off to the right there. You go up to them. I think it's like 10 scrap to activate, and it's excuse me. It's basically a giant decoy. I'll get back to that. One other thing though, Tommies will sometimes spawn. As you see me shooting at them right now. And they will go over to orange, and where you saw them, basically where Todd started shooting at them there, that's where they'll stand. They're real dicks, just like in the second map. They will camp out of range of a lot of your stuff. So if you're playing by yourself, once again, the sniper mandatory for taking care of them. If you're playing with multiple people, I suggest you have someone dedicate themselves to orange. If you have 2 people, have one person cover green and blue. The other person should just dedicate himself to orange unless you absolutely need him to come over. If you're playing with 3 or more, then obviously you can spread yourselves out more, one per thing, or 4 people. Okay, here's a Volt Dropper, and you can watch this arc. So he'll fly around this center pavilion, and then he does a wide arc out to the left here. And then he's going to loop around. So if you have snipers out there in that peninsula area, you will get a couple shots off. Basically he does a figure 8, and then he does a really wide arc around the outside of the map, and he'll bomb all 3 targets at the same time. And this is about the only chance your machine guns, your anti-air will have to shoot him. And then boom, he goes all the way out again. So this is what I'm saying. The turrets are going to struggle on this map to kill the Volt Droppers. It's really going to come down to you. You're going to have to hit him as much as you can. Now you can see I fail a little bit at sniping him.
This one's for you.
He does a semi-figure 8, then he'll loop back around. So you really, when a Volt Dropper comes up, he is your #1 priority. I mean, you'll sometimes have Arties on this map, and I think there's Berthas and Willies. I don't know if an Amplifier spawns or not, I can't remember. But the Volt Dropper should absolutely, positively take priority, because they're just going to tear into your stuff. And it's very rare that I'm going to say a Volt Dropper takes priority, but he really, really does. Even an Artie is not as deadly compared to the Volt Dropper, because at least the Artie is only going to shoot 1 target at a time. That Volt Dropper hits all 3 per pass. So you really, really need to take care of them. Once again, like if you're playing by yourself, you have to have sniper turrets on your not turrets. You have to have snipers on your trench. And if you're playing with multiple people, I still suggest people bring snipers, at least 1 sniper. And sniper turrets if you can afford them. Otherwise, you'll see I have some machine guns up. Those are just kind of to deal with stragglers. For the most part, you shouldn't have too much issue with the smaller enemies. On green, on the far left, green will sometimes get hit by large groups of enemies. So, large groups of resistors or large groups of Tommies. They won't be anything hard, it's just going to be a large group. So when you see that happen, just deal with that. But orange and blue is really where the majority of the intense action is going to go down. That's where most of the bosses are going to go for. And orange in particular is going to be hammered on by a lot of artillery, arty units, and Volt Droppers and Tommies. So you really need to pay attention to that one. This map, do not beat yourself up if you only get a silver or bronze on your first couple tries. This map really requires you to pay attention to exactly what's going on. And once again, if you don't have good drops, I suggest you go back and play the early levels a couple times. Try out Swamp. If you have it unlocked, you should have it unlocked. Try out Swamp a few times. Even if you only get to wave 10, 15, even maybe 20, you're still going to get pretty decent drops. The survival drops are largely pretty useful this time around. And I highly suggest trying that out just to get them. But otherwise, so here's the final wave. You can see we got Artie's and is that Tommy's? I can't quite tell. Yeah, Tommy's coming down on the left side towards green. So once again, if you have the piercing ability, piercing sniper, piercing machine guns, you'll really tear through these guys because they clump up. And if you line your shots up correctly, you can get multiple hits in at a time. Otherwise, just focus on this Artie. You'll take him out fairly quickly. The Arties don't have a whole lot of health. I think if you're using my setup, it's like 8 sniper shells and the machine guns like halfway, and that pretty well kills them. Otherwise, you're gonna have Bertha. I think the Bertha goes for blue. Just let me take a look. Let me take a look-see here. Jacob knobs are really obnoxious. The other thing I was gonna say the decoys. So you can see this is what the decoys do: is they'll draw the enemy towards it. Sometimes the bosses. Like you'll see the Volt Dropper. It looks like he's going towards it. He's not. The Volt Dropper ignores the decoy for the most part. He won't attack it, as far as I know. He will still hit your bases. I'm pretty sure the Arties will. I'm pretty sure all the other bosses will go towards the decoy, except for the Volt Dropper. But the decoy, the one thing to note is the decoy can only take so much damage, and frankly, I don't know if there's a time limit, because usually it gets destroyed. So I don't know if there's a time limit on it, but there's a damage limit. Once again, it costs like 10 to 15 scrap to activate. It's super useful, so if you're getting low on base health, activate it, or once again, if you're playing the campaign, when the final wave spawns, just go ahead and activate the decoys if you haven't used them. That way you just save yourself from getting extra shots on. But once again, the Volt Dropper is a huge prick, and he won't go after the decoy, so you have to deal with that yourself. The Bertha shouldn't be an issue for you, especially if you have a couple of machine guns to deal with the knobs. Like I said, on the left side towards green, you have Arties, an Artie and some Tommies, but nothing major. Hopefully you can do this level. Once again, this level, of all the levels of the DLC, is going to take some trial and error. You're going to have to try it a few times, get a handle for what's going on. But I thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.